This section explains importance as the primitive that the lecture isolates. A finite mind cannot hold the whole environment, so it must select, and selection already presupposes a field of relative importance, a this rather than that. That gradient is the primitive. Importance is the asymmetry that lets a limited intellect cut a manageable figure from inexhaustible matter of fact. Importance and fact are antithetical, yet mutually entailing. There is no importance in a vacuum, and fact matters only because it is inescapable. Philosophy's proper first move is therefore assemblage. Any finite set of premises excludes what it needs, so one must grasp the topic whole before smoothing it into a closed system. This section explains Whitehead's concept of expression, the second structural primitive. Expression is importance, run backwards. Importance descends from the world, as one, into each finite occasion. Expression is that finite occasion, pressing itself outward onto its fellows, the gift of the many to the one. Whitehead turns this reciprocal into the definition of life. A region is alive exactly where it is, the primary field of expressions issuing from its own parts. Grade the latter by how much escapes the average. Inorganic matter transmits only average expression, its individuality stifled. Vegetation is a democracy of parts. An animal is a feudal order under one dominant center. Mankind is that center turned toward unrealized possibility. Aliveness is not a substance. It is the individuality of mutual expression. This section explains Whitehead's account of what understanding is. At the level of its basic structure, Whitehead inverts the usual order. Proof, for him, is the feeble, second-rate root. Self-evidence is what understanding actually is. To understand a thing is to grasp its composition, the reciprocal play of the one and the many, taken either as an outcome, which is the internal grasp, or as a cause, which is the internal grasp, or as a cause, which is the internal grasp. But no grasp ever completes. Every finite pattern carries within it a reference to the infinitude that lies beyond it. You know green only from the perspective of this cosmic epoch, never absolutely. So understanding lives between two poles that must hold together. Completion is the self-evidence you already have. Penetration is the growth toward what still lies unexplored. Feel completion without penetration, and you get dogmatism. Feel penetration without completion, and the insight lacks achievement. Understanding is therefore a process, always in motion, never a static state. That single move is the whole thesis of the chapter. This section explains what it means to say that an entity is its perspective. An entity is its perspective. It is what the whole universe amounts to, seen from that entity's standpoint, either in accomplishment or in potentiality. This is Whitehead's relational essence, now broadened past mere qualities to reach every occasion of fact. This move dissolves the Platonic temptation, the picture of a self-sustaining realm of forms complete in itself. It dissolves it because every form is essentially referent beyond itself. 5 means the things that could be. 5. The form of mud? Once mud. Nothing is understandable apart. Here is the contrast that carries the whole idea. For a qualitative abstraction, like 3 or blue, the perspective holds an infinitude of potentials open. For an actual occasion, the perspective eliminates what is already realized and narrows the future. So you define a thing by what the universe is for it. This is the Yoneda move, ontologized. This section explains how to read every static thing as a completed verb. A number characterizes how a fusion of units finished, twice 3 names, the fluent process, 6, the character stamped on its issue. Calling the equation a tautology erases the transition it records. Data, process, issue, and issue is only ever fresh data feeding the next process. Turn this on anything, a stone, a law of nature, a self, and apparent permanence resolves into partial identity sustained across succession rather than substance sitting outside process. The one forbidden object is a point in process, an instant of time devoid of spread, an individuality devoid of transition. This section explains one inversion at the root of Whitehead's picture of a civilized universe. Reverse the arrow. Empiricism, from Hume onward, builds the world upward from clear sense, data, color, sound, the distinct. It treats everything vaguer, emotion, worth, the felt world, as a reaction to those bright atoms. Whitehead inverts the dependency. The vague total value experience is what is primary and originative. The clear sensa are secondary abstractions that merely add definition. The details are a reaction to the totality, rather than the totality being a construction from the details. Existence at bottom is something that matters, a value, feeling that self differentiates into whole, others, and self, totality, externality, internality. Once you hold this one inversion, the rest of the lecture is forced. Civilization becomes the right adjustment of abstraction, keeping the sharp detail tethered to the massive vague ground it was cut from. This section explains Whitehead's argument in the lecture called Nature Lifeless, where his method is subtraction turned into an argument. He takes the common sense world, self-identical bits of matter, passively qualified, related only by their position in an eternal empty space. Then he watches physics dethrone every item of it. The secondary qualities go to the mind. The empty space becomes a field of force. The matter itself dissolves into sheer activity. Yet through all of this, he quietly keeps the doctrine's conclusion intact. That retained conclusion is the target. A dead nature can give no reasons. A matter-only ontology is reason-free. By construction, because all ultimate reasons aim at value, and inert stuff aims at nothing, so it can never say why its own factors are present together. Combine Hume, who gives perception without any data for its interpretation, with Newton, who gives stresses without reason, and you get the muddle that modern philosophy inherits. This lecture is the demolition. The next one, called Nature Alive, is the answer to it. This section explains Whitehead's claim that nature was never lifeless. Descartes cut the world into matter and mind. Whitehead's move is to deny there were ever two things to fuse. The atom of reality is the occasion of experience, a pulse that appropriates its entire antecedent world into one unity of feeling, then perishes into its successor. Read from outside, that pulse is physics, energetic activity, a formula for succession. Read from inside, it is emotion inherited from the past and aimed at the future. One event carries 3 stresses. Causation weights the environment. Self-creation weights its own pattern. Aim weights the anticipated future. Life is not added to lifeless nature. Nature was never lifeless, only observed from its barren pole, sight, which discloses colored regions and no interior. This section explains what Whitehead takes the aim of philosophy to be. Philosophy is the one discipline that refuses to hold its own primitives fixed. Every science starts from undefined notions, massive matter, force, Euclidean space, and deduces consequences from them without questioning them. The philosopher faces the opposite way, interrogating them. The philosopher faces the opposite way, interrogating the meaning of those starting tempuses or racketeeing. The enemy is one seductive belief that Whitehead names the fallacy of the perfect dictionary. This is the belief that mankind has already coined every fundamental idea and that words already hold them. A doctrine is ignorantly entertained whenever its full scope stays unexamined. Philosophy is the resolute attempt to enlarge that scope, to assault the boundaries of finitude, keeping fundamental ideas novel against their slow decay into the commonplace. Hence, its kinship with poetry. Both point past the direct meanings of words.